Resume recording. There we go. This always happens where I start when I'm like setting up, and then there's like an awkward 5 minutes of my face doing work that needs to be trimmed. So I'm like, I'm not going to do that today.
Yes, I do that, but then I forget to hit record until we're halfway through. So
Yeah.
I suspect that, today, since we don't have a special speaker, that we may not use our full time and we may not have a full group, but we'll take whatever feedback we can get from whoever is here. So thank you both for being here. And Angie and I were just talking about the aftermath of the storms because she's up there in Carpinteria, which has been in the news a lot lately, but so far has not swept away.
I'm here. We were keeping a close eye on the creek right next to where we live. We could actually see the creek if we look out of our top window. And it was creeping up. But if you saw any footage from this area, it was like these rushing, horrible creeks. Those were like a mile away from us at least. So that was good.
Yeah, but a mile's not very far when it comes to some of this stuff. I remember when I've never had to deal with flooding, but trying to convince my dad in one of the fires from, I think it was the Pumacha fire in 2007, I want to say, that he's saying he's in Lakeside. He says, it's too far away. It's still, 13 miles away. And I said, yeah, but yesterday it was 13 miles away from where it is today. So you need to be ready. I'm not leaving. I'm like, okay, all right. You don't, yeah. And he didn't. And thankfully nothing happened to him. But I was like, geez, Dad, 13 miles when you're talking about wildfire is not very far.
Totally. It's really interesting when you're in the middle of a climate event and you're like, all right, I'm supposed to know what to do. I feel like I should be helping my community in more ways. Like, what should I be doing right now besides filling up garbage bins full of water, in case I need it, So, and was anybody else hit hard? No, everybody else did okay. That's good. I was trying to mine my knowledge of where to go for information, but it turns out the good old radar was, AccuWeather radar was helpful. Hi, Lori. Hey, Nikki. We were just chit-chatting about the storms while we're waiting for a couple more folks to show up. Patricia, I saw you came in.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Where you are, I bet it is. What's up? Are you all safe and okay?
Safe and okay, but damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Lots of dams. Damn. Not enough dams. Wait, too many dams. Wait.
I know.
Well, it's interesting because they just removed a dam up here on the section of the Eel. And so I think that part of it is lovely. A few less atmospheric rivers and more rain showers would be appreciated.
Yeah, right.
How's Paula doing, Shasta?
We're good. San Diego County has been on the edge of most of this stuff. So even though we've gotten a fair amount of rain in terms of inches, actually, to my dismay, we still have yet to even show a trickle of water in the San Luis Rey. Usually when we get a real big storm, we'll at least get, flow for part of the day. And it's still just,
wow.
Other than right on the surface where the rain is falling, it's dry as a bone. And that's freaking me out a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah, Teresa's getting hammered.
No, I know. Yeah, and Angie too. They're right there in that same region: Santa Barbara, Carpinteria, Montecito.
Yeah.
We had waterfalls coming down from our local mountains right behind us, and that never happens. It looked like in Hawaii where you drive around. There's waterfalls.
You live right next to Oprah, don't you, Angie?
To where?
Oprah.
Yeah, me and Oprah, we're neighbors. We share sugar. No. Not that close. Right above Ventura, that's where I live. Well, guys, I'm glad to see everybody. We may see some more people trickle in, but you probably saw my note. We don't have a speaker today, but I actually kind of like that every once in a while with this group because I think the top of the year is a good time to just reorient ourselves and make sure we still agree with our objectives, whether or not we want to make any changes to our focuses, to how we're going to focus or how we're going to operate, and just do some, evaluation on what we're up to, what's the best thing to focus on next. But let's start like we usually do, which is just, I think everybody knows each other by now. And nobody's new, right? Oh, Emma, you've been here a couple of times, so
Yeah.
we've met you. Nikki, you've been here a couple of times, so just welcome back, everybody. I think let's go ahead and do our member announcements, then we'll do our discussion. And if we end early, fantastic. So, but yeah, let's set ourselves up for a great 2023. And, just it's a good idea for me to remind our purpose, because it's going to help us for this more strategic conversation. We're connecting national health and climate data experts to exchange knowledge on priority tribal adaptation and resilience data needs, share tools, practices, ideas, and lessons learned from the field, and explore opportunities to develop and scale up solutions to address tribal resilience data needs. So keep that in mind as we get to our conversation about who we are and what we're going to do. Okay, so I was going to leave this open for anybody who wants to. We can spend more time on this than usual if we'd like. If anybody wants to tell us a little bit more about what's going on in their neck of the woods and their work, anything that's related to tribes, climate change, health, and data, we would love to hear it.
I can tell you, our unit is working on a 5-year roll-up of health data, death, ED, hospitalization, and inpatient treatment for all tribal. I just mean people who are Native American or in combination with any other race. And this will be a brief report and a dashboard. So there'll be a dashboard that will be public later this year, hopefully within a couple months. We're working on it now. Oh, it'll have some data. It will also have some data from CHIS, most likely, although that may be only non-Hispanic Native American.
Is that brand new? Is that new or is that a update?
We did do one last year. It was a 1 year, but successfully phased that one out to do in favor of doing one for tribal members in general at the San Diego County level for a 5-year period. Not trending because the data is all up, but a roll up of all 5 years and using the ACS as the denominator.
So you're taking these data sets, you're visualizing them in your dashboard, and then you're doing special cuts for the Native American populations.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. So yes. It's not new raw information.
It is, yeah, because before we had just data at non-Hispanic Native American, and now we have, for at least our health outcome data, we have the ability to pick anyone who's Native American, regardless of mixed race or race ethnicity. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it'd be great to have more counties know what you guys are up to do something similar across the state. Thank you, Isabel.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Hey, I just want to say, I don't know if you guys were at that webinar yesterday for the guidance on Indigenous knowledge for the feds, but if you were not, I heard the best sentence that I've heard in a long time, and I'm just only shocked that it didn't come out of Shasta's mouth. Somebody asked the question, we get a lot of pushback about, including Indigenous knowledge in science, what do you suggest? And one of the speakers said, oh, I agree. Indigenous knowledge is so much deeper than science. It really is difficult to see it put in that small a bucket. But, we're really working to try to understand why people would do that.
Wow. That's awesome. I wish I could have been on that. I had a conflict. I had to be on an advisory council on historic preservation meeting at that same time, but I wanted to be there because I wanted to hear how are they putting this out there for federal agencies. And I was assuming that my hair was going to, what little I have was going to stand on end.
Yeah, I was
listening
not
to this.
thinking that it would be anything good, but I was like, Shasta said this might be good. Oh, no, I'll listen. I'll do something else while I'm listening. And then I was like, wait, this is new. I like this.
Patricia, were you on that as well?
No, I also had a conflict. I really wanted to though. So I'd be interested in hearing more about it, Lori, if you have any high level.
That was the best part of it right there.
Okay.
But the people that they have on that working group are do not put up with baloney. So
Good.
it was really nice. I was surprised. And there were
I'm-
probably 400 people listening
Wow.
at some stage. So
Wonderful. That's
good.
great. Lori, the other thing you could tell us is what is the new acronym and Bernal New Day? What is that on your name?
oh, sorry. That's because I was at a planning meeting last night and I changed my name and I will rename myself so that I'm
Okay.
no longer the general services representative, which you probably don't care about yet.
All right, I was just confused. Like, what are you doing something new and different? But no, okay, there we go.
Nah.
There's the one I'm used to.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, and I see Isabel, you're putting some stuff in the chat. So thank you for that. A public health law conference. Oh my gosh, that sounds great.
Yes, but they're actually really interested. Let me see. If you go there and look at what they're interested in, they highly encourage submissions related to, among other things, tribal public health data, cross-sector sharing, yada, 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 climate change, and et cetera, and other very lawyerly things. But yeah, I'm thinking of submitting for that, and on data privacy and so forth. But they are, if anyone is interested, they are encouraging abstracts on tribal issues.
Great. And sort of on the same line of laws, I had an interesting call the other day that was with the Office of Insurance for the state of California. Now, since we are all from California on this call currently, I will share that I learned about something new. There's a bill, and I forget what the number is. It might have been Assembly or Senate, but that is requiring that a heat index be put in place for the state that will be similar to other sorts of warnings for things like hurricanes or high surf or things like or air quality, but it's going to be for specifically for heat events that might have an effect on human health and safety. So the reason the insurance folks reached out to me was because they had heard me on a panel where I was talking about the health effects of heat and how Paula has included that in some of our materials to prepare the community in our vulnerability assessments and our adaptation plans. And they're hoping to develop some sort of an incentive for insurance to help cover the effects of heat-related illness and injury, but also to be able to help communities be prepared so that they're not having to report losses, whether they're losses from medical expenses or things like having to put diesel into a generator so that you can keep the air conditioning on in your cooling center, stuff like that. So they just wanted to pick my brain about that a little bit. But my takeaway from that for this group was that there's a bill that the California is now required to develop this new heat health index. So I knew nothing about that. And I don't know if anybody else has heard of this.
I mean, must be connected to CDPH, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just put a comment that within the county public health services, I think it was Joanne Julian's group was doing legislative analysis of that. It doesn't, we're like, yes, we want those data. Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice that they would have that kind of index, but also collecting the data and publishing it out. They used to do that on the CDPH's EPI Center. They had one specifically on heat, but that has been taken down. And so I'm hoping it's just going to be replaced.
And is CDPH who's doing this, Shasta?
I don't know. The conversation I had was with the California Insurance Commissioner's office. But I'm assuming it would be CDPH that would be responsible for putting this out there. And
Yeah.
I'm interested in the data as well, because one of the things that we had talked about was that even though there might be a broad announcement that we're having a heat emergency in this region, it's going to affect different people and different populations within those regions in really different ways. So
Yes.
yeah, so what we're dealing with in, people in Rancho Santa Fe in San Diego County are probably not going to have any problem keeping their air conditioners on, whereas people in, National City or, Southeast San Diego are going to have more of an effect. And of course, for our rural areas, because the PSPS events, public safety power shutoffs, tend to be correlated with heat, which tends to be correlated with wind, in Santa Ana's and stuff like that. So I would want to know, when you're having an event like this, how many people from the insurance side actually are putting in claims, so that we know where are the places that are having the most effects that we need to go to say, this is what we need to do to help prevent these effects in the future. And that includes obviously tribal communities as well. So there's a lot of different parts of that. But like I said, I didn't even know that there was a bill that was requiring this. So
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know until you know it, I guess.
Yeah. I was wondering, it's not related, well, it would be related to climate and tribes, but some of the legal efforts on removing, no more gas-powered engines.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering how that's affecting the tribes, because there's a lot, there's, not necessarily electricity everywhere conveniently if you're out.
Right.
You can't just say that, and now there's another one on some questioning on propane.
So no protein? Uh-oh.
No protein. We got no protein. Sorry.
Well, we have nothing but propane out here. We have no natural gas lines on the reservation, and that's true for a lot of them. So yeah, but when it comes to things like two-stroke engines in your leaf blower or your lawnmower or whatever, yeah, it's something that is great in theory, but is a lot harder to do in practice.
Yes.
And it affects the more impoverished communities in different ways. Oh, see, now Lori's going down the rabbit hole. She's like, wait a minute, now we're responsible for this thing that I didn't know anything about.
I also
Yay!
think OPRs, this is a priority for OPR as well. It's been pushed through the governor's office as one of his priorities. And so we have a whole climate services team that's hiring right now to build out an extreme heat team.
Oh.
And we're working closely, the fifth assessment team's working closely with them. It's a priority in the fifth assessment research topics. And we're working closely with the climate services team and DOI. But I love this connection, Shasta, that you just made. All of our conversations are very initial. I don't know a lot about it, so it'd be really interesting to see how it all plays out. But as that starts to come to fruition or formation, maybe we can all kind of gather and keep talking about it.
I vote Cal EPA gives it to OPR.
We'll see, Lori.
I think there's plenty of work for everybody, on data and implementation, and there's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of need. So yeah.
There's certainly some things that OPR has flexibility with that like Cal EPA won't have flexibility with. So it'll probably be one of those partnership things. So you're stuck with us, Lori. Sorry.
The climate services team is interesting. I'm curious. Yeah, because I know some of the folks that I used to know there have moved on, like Juliet.
So Juliet's whole team.
Yeah, right. And then Lisa moved over to Strategic Growth Council. Yeah. But OPR's got some good folk. And so it sounds like you're re-beefing up that team. And we would love to somehow participate in that, share what we know.
I'd be happy to bring on or invite Ben think his last name's McMahon. He's the project manager for the climate services team.
Yeah,
I could see if he'd be interested in doing a presentation and focus on that extreme heat component.
that would be wonderful.
That's like, I was just gonna ask about that. Is there a speaker there that we could talk to? Is there someone we could talk about this?
Well, and maybe he could, I'll let him know that it stemmed from this extreme heat conversation, but maybe he could loop in those other folks too from, I'm not sure who they're coordinating with, Cali PA or.
Yeah. And I wonder, is your tribal advisory group, Patricia, are they gonna chime in on any of this?
Yeah, to be determined. So they're starting, the climate services team is starting a science advisory group. And my goal is to have at least one, maybe two of the tribal advisory group members sitting on that as kind of like a cross-pollination or continuity across the different advisory groups. But they're in the initial stages. They haven't really formed that group yet. And so we're still working out how that will work. I have been speaking with Ben though, and the pressing the importance that we do have tribal representatives on the science advisory group, whether or not it's part of this tribal advisory group or you know, somebody separate. So he's definitely on board with making sure that we have some tribal representatives on that science advisory group too.
Well, cool. Yeah, we'd love to have Ben come sometimes. Yeah, that's good intel. I think, is it out of OPR2 is the adaptation planning grants that just came out. Good to know here in California. It's just something for tribes. So it's tribes and other communities, but it's a good one. It's just was released. I think it's got a couple months of an open application period. Federally recognized tribes like Paula and others have done a good job of getting access to the BIA funds for adaptation planning. This one's going to be available to not just federally recognized tribes, but others as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've done a lot of work trying to make sure that the grant doesn't have those innate barriers to both federally and non-federally recognized tribes. So hopefully we did an okay job there, but it's the first round. So we'll see. Let me see if I can get y'all a link.
Do you know, Patricia, is there going to be any coordination among the tribes that are awarded, meaning like learning from awardees or peer exchange kind of thing?
I don't think it's a requirement. So I think some of the like SGC grants had that as a requirement. I'm not sure if it's an actual requirement. I don't remember that being part of it.
Okay. Just wondering. It seems like a good group to follow, I guess, is what I'm thinking. Like learning from what they're doing would be great, at least, you know, for us at the Tribal Climate Health Project.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that we talked about like the cross-pollination or support, or, you know, how each grant program is going to supplement the other, because we're still in draft grant stages, but the climate assessment has the tribal research program grant guidelines out as well. And then upcoming will be a new, so the RRGP Regional Resilience Grant Program with a focus on regions. And so they're working on their draft grant guidelines as well. All really trying to reduce barriers of entry to tribes. So yeah, there is. Shasta's right. There's a lot of money out there, and we really have to, we're trying to coordinate as much as possible to make it so they don't compete with each other, but they're providing like supplementary opportunities, right? Implementation and planning or whatever it is. I've heard from Shasta a number of times, you know, we don't need another plan on the shelf, which I get, you know, I'm in the Office of Planning and Research, and I also feel like
yeah.
But yeah, a lot of really great stuff coming out of SGC and OPR right now.
Yeah. Gosh, it's going to be a crazy year.
Yeah.
I keep having this feeling. I'm like, oh my God, 2023, this is when it's all the windfall. We got to work the windfall. That's my motto, work the windfall, because it's gonna shut off. It's like, how do we do it in a way where we can get some money in some places it's gonna last, not just frittered away, not just spent because it's here, but like building some assets that are gonna continue on. It's just no, I hope nobody even has time to read a solicitation, let alone apply for it, let alone do something that's gonna save the world.
I had a huge, like, this is gonna age me a little bit, but I feel safer in this space than I do with your colleagues. I read an NPR article that the United Nations is projecting that the hole in the ozone layer is going to close within the next 40 years. Did you guys read that?
I thought it was by 2040.
2040. Okay, 20 years. Maybe I misread it.
16 years, so 17 years.
16
It's
years.
2023.
Shasta. That's like, I mean, I remember when
I'll be dead in 17 years.
School, I might be too. In elementary school, when I learned about that, and like, it seems so impossible to address. And I don't know, like working in the space, I feel like it's often catastrophic events, and
Yeah.
it's really hard to work in this space sometimes. So anyway, that was a big moment that gave me encouragement to keep working in this space. I don't know why I just thought about
Yeah,
that.
I love it. I had an academic tell me recently that in 20 years, all of our climate action goals are going to be enacted in policy, or going to be implemented. We're going to be in better shape in terms of the emissions. So that we, the exponential action is going to occur over the next 20 years, and we will get there. Okay, cool.
Good to hear.
All right. So, what else? Anybody else have announcements before we kind of dive into what we want to do this year? I'll share. You know what? I'm going to share one more thing, and that's this. This is just we are now into our third session of our year-long training for tribes across the country, and I'm just sharing with you some of the topics that we're going to be discussing, and I'm sharing it because this is a peer, like an advanced training where we're getting peers within tribes to share and exchange knowledge amongst each other on different topics. And it's, I think it's going to be a good learning opportunity. And out of this, we are going to be creating what we're calling wisdom wells, which is a place to sort of contain what we're learning from some of these more experienced tribal practitioners, so that we can share it among others that may have less experience, or maybe at the beginning of climate and health adaptation processes. So I think we're going to tap into some interesting topics, and we're having more of our participants actually be the speakers of these trainings rather than talking at them. And so I think they'll be good. And, it's just something that we'll end up having some resources to share out afterwards that can help tribes around the country. And it's not just data related, but data is definitely going to come up. You can see even in our next session, lessons on conducting tribal vulnerability assessments and incorporate TEK, community input, and Western and Indigenous science. So kind of what we were talking about before. So, that's that. We may be tapping in more to some of you for speaking. All right. Anything else here on announcements?
I have a question or a request
Yeah.
for everybody on, see if anybody has access to something like this. So with the fifth assessment, both in the tribal research program, but the broader fifth assessment, anytime we're working with tribes, we're going to have a data sovereignty agreement. And I've received some templates from the state, but I'm really wondering if any tribes have anything that they feel good about. We're going to take it to the tribal advisory group and broader engagement, but would like to kind of come up with a good template for any of the work that we're doing to ensure that we're protecting tribal data across the fifth assessment.
So I have a few suggestions. The Climate Science Alliance has developed some data sovereignty language, at least, that could be helpful. But as far as one that comes from a tribe, Taruk has one that they developed. I believe it was specific to a project they might have been doing with Berkeley. but I think there's a lot of it that, again, can translate. I think I have a copy of that somewhere, and it's public, so I can send that your way. The stuff for the Climate Science Alliance is on their website.
Okay, I've seen that language for sure. Would love to pull from that, but then yeah, if you have that other example from Krug, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so the part of what we want to talk about today is just reflecting on what it is we've been doing. Do we want to continue what we've been doing? Do we want to do something a little different? What's hot topics for this coming year, and how do we want to tackle it? So I thought we'd start with just sort of reflecting a little bit on what we've been doing, and just obviously we would want to continue the things that folks are finding most valuable. And so, you know, feel free to, in this mix, talk about things that aren't working as well, but we thought we would try to elevate the things that we are finding most valuable about these meetings and this group in general.
Well, I like the people.
Oops.
Isabel, I think that's her first name, with San Diego. I've really enjoyed like learning that there are health departments and offices that are willing to play. Like you were saying, it gets depressing, but when you meet the people that are willing to collaborate and willing to work with tribes to get a great outcome, I think that kind of revitalizes things, at least for me. And I've used San Diego as an example so many times now. Like, they do epi work and they are nice. You can be nice too. But that's been super helpful for me.
Yeah, I threw in here informally working with tribal serving health data and climate colleagues. Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts too. This doesn't have the restrictions that some sort of formal working group might have.
One of my favorite things has been the sharing of ideas, because I'm not really I've become a data nerd, you know, through this kind of work, but I'm still early enough that I learn new things, and that's really great, to be able to hear from other people how data can be used to inform our work. My background, you know, given my background in training, I'm much more of a qualitative data than a quantitative data kind of a person, which has been a tough transition for me, and this has been a safe place for me to do that.
Yeah, thank you. I like seeing us mix together agencies and organizations that don't always have a chance to communicate with each other, and seeing what comes. Sometimes something comes of it. So it's sort of building bridges with some immediate results. Even it's like, I know that guy, I know who to go to for that now, or these guys have something that I could immediately take into my work.
Yeah, and for me, it's been a nice place to get informations. I work with a few tribes, and everybody's busy. And so if I hear something here that somebody else can use, then I can bring that information to them, and then that tribal person doesn't have to sit through another meeting. That's helpful for me.
Yeah.
I agree with all of these, really. I mean, and you're just like taking the thoughts right over my head. I do like the informality, but I also like that there's it's national, it's state, and then, you know, local, and obviously tribes. Just that there is some people for me to ask, right? Because I am just a data nerd. I like nothing better to do than to digest it. And I don't really, you know, I'm willing to work on just about anything when there's a data set to be plumbed. So I like that.
Yeah, like a sounding board.
Yeah. And seeing what other people are doing or how they react to what, you know, we're trying to push out. That's useful. I mean, something it feels like, so what do they think of this tool? You know, is that useful? Is it not? I like getting some feedback.
Yeah. I will say I like how efficient it is to provide input on tools that the tool makers themselves can kind of immediately take back. Okay, well, I like a few things. Anything else? Okay, I mean, I think it's obviously it's worth continuing, even though, you know, today's doesn't have the biggest level of participation. And so we'll talk a little bit more about just now, okay, as we continue, these are what we like about it. We'll continue these features of it. And just making sure that we're getting out of it what we want to get out of it. You know, I would say even if we didn't do anything but exchange information, build some relationships, get more familiar with more solutions and tools, and have this forum to, you know, share ideas, that would probably still be enough. But on top of that, we probably could ensure that our efforts have even greater results potentially. So let's kind of revisit maybe our objectives, what we had said in the beginning that we wanted to do when we first started this group. The two main ones were to improve tribal climate and health resilience data access for tribes and to foster collaborative tribal resilience data access solutions. And so that was goals. What did that mean in terms of what we'd actually do, what our objectives are? We said we wanted to identify key tools, solutions, and make publicly available, and evaluate their usefulness to tribes, identify which tools don't currently serve tribes well and which can be enhanced or scaled up. How did we feel like we're doing that?
I'm not a tribe, so I couldn't answer that really.
Yeah. I think this might be what
we're doing it. I have to say we're doing it because I have to report on this in my grant. So yes, we're doing it, but yeah, we are. We may not get the same level of participation or a number of people attending every meeting, but you know, this is what, number 18 now of our meetings. So yeah, we've been doing this for a year and a half, and we've created a lot of opportunities here. There's still a lot to do, but you know, let's go back to what Isabel started the meeting with, which is what San Diego County is doing to filter out and make available that data on health impacts on tribal citizens and, you know, people with tribal heritage. That didn't exist 18 months ago. Now it's, you know, it's not happening because of what we're doing here, but it's something that we've talked about and that Isabel knows that we need because we've been having these conversations. And I think we're creating that also as something to point to. You know, California is always on the leading edge of this stuff. And now we can say, this is what we're doing here, and we want to see you and find ways to help you do it in other places. So yes, we are doing number one. We are certainly doing number two. And then the protection, that's a big topic right now, the protection of tribal data. So outside of this venue, it's being talked about. And then obviously, you know, Patricia, you even asking about it without seeing this slide first makes clear how important this stuff is. and that the word is getting out that tribes data needs to be protected. So
maybe what an objective here for that one is just like sharing practices,
protocols, templates, examples. And that's something else. That's something I'm working on as part of the Tribal Science Council and on behalf of the EPA's Region 9 Regional Tribal Operations Committee. I'm the head of the Data Research Protocol, Tribal Research Protocol Working Group, to come up with templates for tribes to use when they are asked to participate in some sort of a research project by any entity, but particularly by non-tribal entities who tend to want to use your data without talking about why and how it should be protected, and even having those conversations about what a tribe might think needs protection that your average person off of the street does not understand. I've used this example a couple times this week in different meetings where it's been suggested that if you want to protect tribal sacred sites, for example, or archaeological sites, why not do interpretation where it's like, this is the site of Tomcov Village. That way people know that it's there and they know why it's important. I say, here's why we don't do that, because it tells people exactly where things are and where they can go dig in the ground and start looting. So no, you do not reveal sacred sites, but somebody who thinks, who's trying to think about ways to help identify and protect tribal data is like, everybody should know. So that way they know not to disturb it. Like, it's actually exactly the opposite. So that's part of what we need to do, is help to educate people who don't work with tribes on what tribal data protection actually means.
Would it be worth it? Because I was looking at all this, I'm imagining myself as somebody new in the climate, trying to find, would it be worth doing a website that has this stuff that's easier to find? If Paula would stop doing so much work, things wouldn't get buried. But as it is, Paula has a new thing so often that I have a hard time finding things. And I just say, like, go to the Paula website and search for it there. But would it be worth it? And would that costs money? And then if you don't feed a website, it dies.
Yeah, well, some of that stuff exists actually. So that's why I put the Climate Science Alliance's website in there. They've got a lot of good information on info and data sharing, but also links to some other places. One of them, for example, being the, what the heck is it called? The United States Indigenous Data Sovereignty Network. So that's one. There's a link to actually the Karuk Climate Change Project for retaining knowledge sovereignty.
Oh, I'm looking at their site now. Yeah, they have good stuff.
Yeah. And so some of that stuff already exists. And that's something else that I think we need to be really cognizant of, is we come up with this great idea and then don't do the initial work to find out if somebody's already done it. I've made that mistake. Other people have done it too. In fact, I was a little discouraged to see that some of the climate resilience hubs that have been, or the regional climate collaboratives, Paula got funded for ours, but our work plan is very similar to a work plan for another hub that's being funded in the Los Angeles area. And some of the things are things that already exist. And it's a little distressing to see people getting funded to replicate work that's already there, or that another group is being funded to do the same thing. It's like, well, maybe we shouldn't be giving people the money to everybody who wants to create their own website and their own tool. Like the tools are there. Like Patricia was saying, we don't need another plan. We don't need another tool. We need to give people access to the existing tools or improve existing tools. So anyway, yes, Lori, some of that stuff is out there.
So what does that mean for us, though, in terms of what we do in that space? I think we could bring speakers in to talk about these issues if that's useful. It is connected, to our purpose about better protection of tribal data. We could Navigate, it doesn't have to be like rehashing resources or a full resource hub, but it could be a place on our website where we're navigating people to the places where this stuff actually already exists.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I want to show people this is where you can go, and that's what the Alliance did. Here's a place you can go. But I think that we can also make some of this specific to our climate work. Like I was saying, there's stuff that people don't necessarily understand why it needs to be protected. So to make a more climate specific example, if a tribe says we need to protect a place or a plant or a resource, that part of that protection means we don't have to tell you why. We just need to tell you that it needs protection. Sage needs protection, is for an example. Although sometimes you end up having to reveal things just as part of protection, and that can backfire on itself. But yeah, we need to do more to protect white sage, because white sage is being over harvested and sold to a bunch of new age seekers, and why that is, and anyway, yeah, sorry, I'm going down the rabbit hole of examples. But make it specific how data protection relates to tribes' climate adaptation efforts.
Okay. Okay.
It might be interesting because we were talking earlier, what the average person knows versus, what's important to a tribe that you wouldn't know to ask. Whether when we talk about data de-identification, it might be interesting if we had sort of, I don't know, dueling speakers, speak off, just where you have
Be great.
the California Department of Healthcare Services as a whole data de-identification guideline, which includes a scoring for things like ranking risk if you start identifying by demographic, male, female, race, ethnicity, very selected rate. And we've been working with them to align our data de-identification to those standards. I'm just thinking very particularly about the tribes, but it would be really interesting to hear for, it's Mary Holiday Hansen who usually is talking about this, but also at the same time have someone who's can speak on tribal issues and see, well, are there things that could be added to that? Having both of those views, because tribal data best practices incorporate stuff that the bigger state of California does not explicitly address, although they do talk about, like, well, if you have a small racial population, you've got to be extra careful. You roll up years, you do it, at the state level, you de-identify if it's an area of a certain, where the population size is yada, yada small, or you do these things depending on the actual, if you're looking at a healthcare condition that's very sensitive, HIV is classic, AIDS classic, you take that into account when you're going to release data. I think that's one really interesting approach. We're aligning with that, but it would be really interesting to hear from a tribal data expert, maybe someone from the California Tribal Epicenters or the Urban Indian Center, because they talk a lot about tribal data. State is talking about data they release. The tribal are talking about working with our tribal data. We don't want to have it released. We don't want the location. It might be, I don't know, interesting or a learning experience for those both to be coming together. Maybe not literally at the same time.
And you mean that under this third goal, right?
Yeah.
Having connection with better protection. So does this capture it if I say guidance on considerations for data makers on working with tribal data?
Yeah. I think a lot of that it doesn't just tribal. I mean, Native American, Alaska Native. It could also be other small population groups where they also would be needing that kind of thing. So even if you don't directly work with the tribe, maybe you work with another population that's at risk, that is very small, easily identified, and particularly vulnerable. Just a thought.
Got it. Yeah, I like it. So let's see. So these are the things we said we would do. I think we we've made some good progress on a lot of it. To talk about our progress, I think we've had like 15 or so speakers speak on different tools over the couple of years that we've been doing this. In addition, as Tribal Climate Health Project, we're always using the information that we're hearing in these meetings to try to improve our own services, including the easy tools. So all the conversations we've had around data gaps and data tools and things that tribes could use, that's sort of our way to navigate tribes to it, is to put it into that easy tool and make sure that the best data sets are there and accessible, more accessible. So we've done a new iteration of that. What we've learned here has helped support us as we've developed new grant proposals to help us take the next step. So obviously we've got, on our plate for 2023 and beyond is continuation of our data development efforts, including we'll be doing a statewide questionnaire to learn more from tribes about their data needs, but also the iteration after that is about really trying to tackle new analysis of data sets around water supply and wildfire related illness. So it's just will be nice. I mean, I think we're obviously we're the facilitators of this group. We use the information from this group. We'll come here for that sounding board service and bring things to this group to help sort of course correct as we go. Let's see. So I guess outside of what you're seeing here on the screen, what else could we be doing to serve these goals? What else could we physically be doing that could provide some value here for ultimately for tribes who are working to adapt to climate change and protect their health from a data perspective? Does anybody see a big need to change how we operate? Meaning, like, are our meetings still feeling useful where we bring in a speaker on a topic and have a discussion? Or do we need to spend more time in sort of like not just in exchange of information, but in development of something? Meaning like development of guidances or case uses and that kind of thing.
I'm keeping my mouth shut because I don't want any more work to do.
Nah.
I like the idea of guidance. I think guidance is a good idea. Something brief and simple that basically is, here's the need and here's a way to start meeting that need, and then with resources.
Yeah.
To point to resources. Speaking of which, I was just looking over the Climate Science Alliance's link to the U.S. Indigenous Data Sovereignty Network, and it goes to a gaming site. So I think something's going on with their website, and I'm going to tell them you need to update that link because it goes to like Wild West slots, play now. So, so that's not good.
Well, okay. So as you have ideas, let us know as we kind of continue on this conversation. We have been, what's occurring to me is just maybe there is more time spent to bring the work of Tribal Climate Health Project to the group as sort of it's like the work of Tribal Climate Health Project is the work of the National Tribal Resilience Data Work Group. Like we're the staff that staff this working group, and so I'm wondering if folks feel like that's useful to bring as we make progress on some of these grant deliverables that we're bringing to the group, and that the group is helping to advise on those projects. Like, so as we develop a questionnaire, it would be really interesting to hear from folks if these are the right questions or if there's better questions. And we are intending to develop some case studies and things, and we would bring that here. And so just, sounding board assistance. And then definitely as we start tackling more this issue of, we're going to be developing white papers as we learn more about the data available to tribes on water supply and wildfire related illness. we would definitely like to mine the hive brain here for their knowledge. So I think we'll just, we'll use that as we can if nobody objects. I think it'll feel productive. And then, we can make that available to anybody really in the group who wants to bring their work here. And I think that's kind of what we do. Bring your work here, use this as a sounding board, get some feedback, mine the hive brain. Okay. As we've gone on, we've been keeping track of key themes in terms of data gaps and needs. So we're collecting that. Patterns have emerged. So we'll kind of continue to refine this as we learn more and more about what each of us are learning from tribes. And then there's one thing here, if we wanted to be somehow more proactive about advocacy, meaning like when we're trying to provide guidance to the agencies that are developing data related tools, we usually would bring them to us and then we just share information live. We could be a little more strategic about that, meaning, going after certain organizations to provide comment maybe more formally or in a different way. So if we want to be more targeted about, okay, this group is doing this thing and it's not serving tribes in this way, and we want to tell them about it. We could be more targeted about that. And so we could sort of focus in on any agencies that we think are really trying to work, serve tribes and providing them with what we know. And if that's the case, does anything pop out to anyone in terms of like who would need to hear from us? It feels more aggressive when I'm talking about it in this way. It doesn't have to be. I think we've had a good approach of being, we're friendly and we're understanding that everybody's at some iteration of trying to serve tribes better, bringing them in and then having a productive conversation, but we could do it differently. Yeah. All right. I think,
Yeah, I feel good with what we're doing.
Okay. All right. Just
I think
brainstorming.
one thing kind of on this, I mean, obviously my organization is on here, so I wouldn't be involved in this, but I'm in full support of any way that that input can be shared. But that's like a whole new ask, right? That's a whole new task to do. It's a whole new thing. There's some agencies that really aren't going to take into account feedback unless it comes formally.
Yeah.
OPR isn't one of them. And I think a lot of agencies are starting to change that and shift that. So like the informal component is good for a lot of agencies, but maybe just identifying those ones that require the formality might be beneficial.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of these on here are our friends and regular folks that come to these meetings, that it's like, we would just be maybe more specific about, there's a thing we would like to discuss. And then otherwise, where there are formal comment periods that get issued sometimes that are relevant, maybe that's where we want to decide whether or not we submit comment. And this is becoming a thing I do now regularly in my career, more on the local government side. But man, there are just so many comment periods. It's exhausting. But I guess if we come across one that seems really important, we could potentially file comments. Then the question becomes, who cares? Who are we? Who do we represent? So yeah. Our name sounds good. National Tribal Resilience Data Work Group. I'd listen to us. All right. So I guess that's like for the group to flag anything that they see that's a good opportunity for comment or just informal advising, and let the group know. We can try to bring it to our own attention. If we have the bandwidth to do it, we will.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So then I'm gonna just create a create a blank slide just for any other ideas for 2023, things that we're not already doing that you think would be useful. Just total brainstorming without too many barriers in your way. Did we lose Lori? I feel like we lost Lori.
I think we did.
Oh, boo. Okay. Maybe I've gotten all I need from you all. You all are too happy with the way things are going.
Well, I think
All right.
I think we've shared a fair number of ideas, so the well is run dry a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so one last question I have is should there be any changes in terms of the meeting schedule or how the agenda works? So any feedback on that would be good. Do we want to move? Is monthly still feeling right? That was a suggestion. It was actually, I think we started off, I think it was Tom Gates saying, let's meet monthly for now as we kick off. And I think we started off with an 1.5 hour long meeting. So we moved to an 1 hour long meeting and we're still monthly. Does that feel like too much? We could go to bi-monthly, every other month. What do you guys think?
I'm always an advocate of fewer meetings. I would say bi-monthly at this point. Monthly meetings just are a lot.
They are.
And it's also easier for you, Angie, to wrangle people to speak to us if we're not having to find somebody every month.
Yeah, I feel like I've harassed, the right suspects at least once by now. So yeah, as always, we're always looking for other speaker ideas. And some of this just comes from like everybody keeping their ear to the ground about what's really relevant, what's coming up, who we want to hear from. So, like today we talked about climate services, OPR's climate services. That would be a really good one.
Angie, I have a couple other ideas I can send to the group in email after this meeting. We're doing like downscale climate projections specific for California. So I don't know if it's just for the California participants in the 5th assessment. And we didn't really have any insight or say in how that was formed or how it happened, but it's almost done. And I think it's really interesting. It'll be really interesting on how useful it is for tribes or what we need to do to make this data useful for tribes. So that might be something in the next 6 months or so that we'll be rolling out that might be useful for us.
Yeah, that'd be great. And even what we talked about today too, I guess it was Cali, PA. It'd be nice to hear from somebody about the heat, the extreme heat programs.
Yep.
Anything else coming to anybody's mind in terms of the hot topics for 2023 that I can go out and try to drum up some speakers for? Oh, we talked about data protection. All right, well, those are useful topics. Anything else coming to anybody's mind on topics or speakers? Okay, great. Well, that's all I've got then for today. I'm gonna let you have some time in your life back. Oh, did I go over?
Yeah, I was gonna say we're at 12:05, so I was like, are we still doing 90-minute meetings? I didn't think so.
No, I'm sorry. I really thought we were like way early. Sorry about that. I wasn't tracking time. So thanks for staying on. No wonder we lost Lori. Okay, well then we will see you not February, but we'll see you in March. So you'll see a change to your calendar. And thanks for all your input today, guys. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
All right, stay safe, everybody. Stay dry.
Yep.
Bye,
Stay
everyone.
dry.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.